Have you ever set a big goal, felt a surge of motivation, imagined the amazing results, and then, days or weeks later, found yourself slipping back into old habits as if that goal never existed? Maybe it was starting a fitness routine, learning a language, or finally finishing that creative project. At first, you could almost taste the future success. You pictured the healthier version of yourself, the moment of speaking fluently in a new tongue, the satisfaction of holding your finished work in your hands. But when daily life rolled in with its distractions, the vision faded, and so did your effort. This is a cycle so many of us know too well. The dream feels real in the beginning, but reality slowly swallows it. Today, I want to show you a tool, simple yet surprisingly powerful, that can break that cycle. It's called mental contrasting, and it's not just a productivity hack. It's a way to align your mind so that your desires and your reality work together instead of pulling in opposite directions. Let's start with the problem. When we think about our goals, we tend to make one of two mistakes. The first is that we only focus on the dream. We imagine how amazing the outcome will be, we feel inspired, and for a while that positive emotion carries us forward. But the brain starts to treat that imagined future as if we've already tasted it, which paradoxically makes us less likely to act. In psychological terms, the fantasy alone satisfies some of the reward craving, and the urgency to actually get there diminishes. The second mistake is the opposite, focusing only on the obstacles. We think of all the things that stand in our way, the lack of time, energy, money, willpower, and we become discouraged before we even begin. Mental contrasting avoids both traps. It's a method developed by psychologist Gabriele Wettingen, and it's deceptively simple. You start by vividly imagining the desired future, but then you deliberately contrast it with the reality you're in right now, including the obstacles that could prevent you from getting there. And here's the key. You hold both in your mind at the same time. This creates a kind of mental tension, but it's the good kind. The kind that nudges your brain to start forming plans, to see the path forward not as a vague hope, but as a concrete bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Imagine it like this. The future you want is a bright, detailed image on one side. Your current reality is a photograph on the other side. When you mentally place them side by side, you see the gap between them clearly, and your brain naturally starts asking, how do we close that gap? This is different from traditional positive thinking, which tells you to focus only on the vision, and it's different from pure problem solving, which might make you ignore why the goal excites you in the first place. The magic of mental contrasting is in the combination. Now let's make it practical. The process has 3 steps. First, you define a goal that genuinely matters to you. Not something you think you should do because of external pressure, but something that resonates deeply. It could be personal, professional, or even relational. Second, you close your eyes and picture the best possible outcome. Be specific. If your goal is to run a 10K, don't just think, I'll be fit. Imagine the morning of the race, the feeling of the crisp air in your lungs, the sound of your shoes hitting the pavement, the pride swelling as you cross the finish line and see your time. Let yourself feel it. Third, you shift your attention to the reality you're in now and the obstacles that are most likely to get in your way. Maybe it's that you haven't run more than a few kilometers in months, or your schedule is packed, or you tend to skip workouts when the weather turns bad. Be honest and concrete. Vagueness kills the power of this step. And then you hold both images in your mind. The glowing vision of the future and the honest snapshot of now, obstacles included. This is where the brain starts working differently. By seeing both clearly, you create a mental if-then map, often without even trying. If I know I tend to skip workouts when I'm tired, then I'll schedule them in the morning before decision fatigue sets in. If my evenings are always busy, then I'll block out lunch breaks for short runs. The important thing here is that the vision stays alive in your mind. It's your fuel, but the obstacles become part of the engine rather than roadblocks you avoid thinking about. There's another reason this works so well, and it's about energy management. When you only focus on the dream, your brain gets a hit of dopamine right away. But without a real plan, the energy fizzles out. When you only focus on the obstacles, your stress response kicks in, and it can shut down creativity. Mental contrasting balances both systems. It gives you enough positive energy to feel motivated and enough realism to stay engaged and strategic. This is why research shows that people who practice mental contrasting are more likely to follow through on their goals, even months later. Let's take a common everyday example. Say you want to read more books this year. The fantasy-only approach might have you picturing yourself in cozy corners with stacks of novels, feeling cultured and relaxed. The reality-only approach might have you sighing about how you never have time to read. So what's the point of starting? With mental contrasting, you imagine the satisfaction of finishing a great book, the ideas sparking in your mind, and then you contrast that with the fact that most of your free time gets swallowed by scrolling your phone. That tension leads to a plan: putting your phone in another room for the first 30 minutes after dinner and keeping a book within arm's reach. What's interesting is that this method doesn't just help you move toward goals, it can also help you decide which goals are worth your time. When you honestly consider the obstacles, you might realize that the vision doesn't excite you enough to push through the reality. And that's a good thing. It saves you from chasing goals you're not truly committed to. This is why mental contrasting is as much a tool for clarity as it is for action. One of the best ways to use mental contrasting in everyday life is to combine it with another tool called implementation intentions, often summarized as if-then planning. Once you've identified both the dream and the obstacles, you create a specific action plan for when those obstacles arise. For example, if your goal is to write for 30 minutes each morning but you know you tend to check emails first, your if-then plan could be, if I wake up and feel the urge to open my inbox, then I will instead open my writing document and type one sentence before doing anything else. This works because it preloads your decision-making. When the moment comes, you don't have to negotiate with yourself, you just execute. And when paired with the emotional clarity of mental contrasting, it's far more likely to stick. The subtle power of this method lies in its realism. Many self-help approaches push relentless optimism. Visualize success, ignore the negativity, and push forward. But life doesn't work that way. We all have blind spots, deeply ingrained habits, and unpredictable circumstances. By acknowledging these up front without letting them kill our motivation, we build a kind of mental resilience. It's like strengthening a bridge not by pretending storms won't come, but by preparing it to sway without breaking. Let's walk through a deeper example. Imagine your goal is to start a side business while working full-time. You visualize the independence, the creative control, maybe the extra income. It's exciting, but then you honestly contrast it with reality. Your current evenings are often spent exhausted. You have a fear of putting yourself out there, and you know you sometimes procrastinate on difficult tasks. Rather than letting those truths shut you down, you treat them as design constraints. You create if-then plans. If I feel too tired after work, then I'll commit to just 20 minutes of focused work before dinner. If I start avoiding marketing tasks, then I'll call a friend for a 10-minute accountability check. Notice how the obstacles become part of the architecture rather than the wrecking ball. Here's the part most people miss. Mental contrasting doesn't just increase the likelihood of action, it sharpens focus. By seeing the cost of inaction side by side with the dream, you create a sense of urgency that's grounded in reality. It's not the frantic urgency of panic, but the steady, purposeful urgency of someone who knows they have limited time and wants to use it well. There's also a deeper psychological shift that happens when you practice this regularly. You stop fearing obstacles as signs you're failing, and you start reading them as natural checkpoints. You become less attached to the idea of a frictionless journey and more interested in how you respond to friction when it arrives. This is where the philosophical layer comes in. Mental contrasting is, in a way, an antidote to both naive optimism and cynical pessimism. It's a form of grounded hope, the belief that the future can be better, paired with the humility to see the real work it will take to get there. This mindset aligns with Stoic philosophy, which teaches us to prepare for adversity without losing sight of our purpose. It also aligns with modern neuroscience, where studies on motivation show that the most sustainable drive comes from balancing reward expectation with a clear-eyed assessment of effort. If you practice mental contrasting regularly, you might notice it spilling over into areas you didn't expect. You'll start making quicker, more confident decisions because you'll be in the habit of weighing vision against reality. You'll waste less energy on goals that don't truly matter to you, and you'll find it easier to commit to the ones that do. You might even feel less guilt about past failures because you'll see that the missing piece wasn't willpower. It was a lack of alignment between desire and plan. If you want to try this right now, here's a quick exercise. Think of a goal you have for the next 3 months. Step 1. Close your eyes and vividly imagine the best possible outcome as if it's already happened. See the details, feel the emotions. Step 2. Shift to your current reality. What's in your way? Be specific and honest. Step 3. Hold both in your mind for a minute. Let the contrast sharpen. Step 4. Write down 1 to 3 if-then plans that connect the present to the future. This exercise can take as little as 5 minutes, but if you do it consistently, it rewires how you approach challenges. And unlike some techniques that rely heavily on bursts of motivation, this one builds a structure you can lean on when motivation inevitably fluctuates. Remember, the point is not to make obstacles disappear, it's to make them part of the map. Over time, mental contrasting trains you to think like a strategist instead of a daydreamer or a defeatist. You stop being someone who only imagines the summit or only stares at the mountain, and you become someone who actually starts climbing, step by step, with a clear sense of both the beauty ahead and the terrain underfoot. And that shift doesn't just help you reach goals, it changes your relationship with yourself. You start trusting your own follow-through because you've built a mental process that honors both your dreams and your reality. That trust becomes self-reinforcing, making the next goal easier to pursue. So the next time you find yourself excited about a big idea, don't just ride the high of the fantasy and don't get lost in the heaviness of the obstacles. Put them side by side. Let them talk to each other. Let the friction between them spark a plan. That's where real change starts, not in escaping reality, but in engaging with it fully while keeping your eyes on the horizon. And if you found this approach insightful and practical, remember that this is exactly what we do here at Mind Unlocked. Help you build a toolkit for better thinking, one tool at a time. So if you want to keep expanding that toolkit, like this video, share it with someone who's chasing a goal, and subscribe to the channel. Because the more clearly we see both where we are and where we're going, the more power we have to get there.